Hello and welcome to Drunk on Tea. Today, in a very special video, I'll be taking on a 3-paint challenge where I'll be painting up this Imperial Guard model using just 3 colours rather than the usual 5, and those colours will be Abaddon Black, White Scar and Khorne Red. So the first thing I've done is I've primed the model black and I've painted the whole model with Abaddon Black. This will give us a nice smooth, even base coat and ensure any errors can be corrected later on. Now first of all, I'm making a nice grey mix, so I'm going to take some of my black here, putting it onto my palette. I want quite a lot of black because I'm going to be doing a bit of mixing here, so I'm taking the black and the white. I'm going to mix a bit of the 2 colours together so I get a kind of grey colour to start with. A lot of this model is just going to be adding more white or black to a mix to keep changing the colours. There's going to be a lot of dry brushing and glazing going on here. So after I've got this first grey mix, I'm just taking some of the paint onto my brush, drying it off on a bit of paper towel because I'm going to be doing some dry brushing to the model. I'm making this whole colour scheme up as I go. I've got no real plan for what I'm going to do with this model. I'm just going with it. So first of all, I'm just dry brushing quite heavily all over the model. I want to leave that black in all of the recesses, but catch all of the raised and flat surfaces with this grey mix. I'm going to start by doing like an undershading effect, so a bit like a zenithal or what you would do if you're doing speed or contrast paints. I'm just flicking my brush back and forth over the model, applying quite a heavy layer of this grey mix I've made all over the model. But I want to leave that black in all of the recesses. So I'm slowly building this up over several passes to the model, making sure I leave that grey on all the raised and flat surfaces. Coating all of the model with this, just going back and forth, several layers of that grey mix till I build up to an effect I'm happy with for the first colour. I'm letting that first Abaddon Black layer do a lot of the work on this model. With only 3 colours, it's going to be a very grayscale paint job with just the red as an accent colour. So I'm just still flicking back and forth, building up that layer of grey. As you can see, it's starting to build up now. We've got the black in all of the recesses, but the flatter surfaces are getting that grey deposited on them. I'm quite liking the slightly dusty appearance of dry brushing for this as well. I think this is a colour that I'm going to go with for the rest of the colour scheme. And after that initial dry brush, you can see how I've built up that grey all over the flat surfaces. I've still left all the definition of the black in all of the recesses. So now I'm mixing a little bit more white into the mix so I get a brighter grey. Once again, loading my brush up, drying it off on a bit of paper towel, and then coming through with a slightly lighter dry brush this time, depositing a bit of this lighter grey on top of the previous grey. By going lighter, it will build a nice transition from dark to light. This will pick out more of the raised surfaces, leaving some of that darker grey on the larger, flatter areas. So I'm just coming back and forth with my brush, slowly building this up until I get another colour that I'm happy with. So by not really planning this, I'm just doing everything by eye and by feel. So when I feel like I've got a colour that I'm happy with, I'll move on to the next stage, which will be to add more white into the mix and go again. It's very repetitive at this stage. So now I'm adding more white in again. You can see I'm creating a grey, almost like Ministratum grey. Again, drying my brush off and coming back through for another pass. Now I'm making sure I only do from top to bottom of the model, so it highlights the most raised and upwards facing surfaces, leaving the darker colours in all of the other areas. Just building this up. I'm even quite happy with the effect this is giving on the metallic parts to the gun. I think I might end up leaving this as it is and doing that sort of grayscale all over the model. So it's really interesting only having the 3 colours to work with. You don't have a lot of variation. You've got to try and use what you've got to build detail and make different parts stand out. After one more pass of this colour, just about happy with how this is looking. So I add a little bit more white in, just brighten it up a final time. And apply one more dry brush. Just catching the most raised parts of the model now. So I'm being really light with this one. Just wanting to catch the sharpest points. The beauty of what we've done now is that with any other colours I can just glaze them over the top, and I'll keep all of this effect we've already built up. So it works really well like an underpainting method. So I can glaze on top and keep all of that definition, shading and highlighting that we've already done via the dry brushes. With this final pass of this lighter grey mix, I think that'll be all of the base layer needed. So now I'm coming in with some black, which I'm going to really thin down with water. I want to get this down to a glaze consistency now. So it'll be slightly see-through when you apply it. I don't want it to be so wet it's like a shade and I lose control of it. Somewhere in the middle, so it's not too strong of a black paint. So this is about right. And now I'm going to add just a little bit of white to this, just so it's slightly off black, more like a Corvus black colour than the pure Abaddon Black. This will allow the shading that we've already applied underneath to show through as we glaze these colours on top. Now I'm going to apply this to areas that I want to be more black. So we'll see how where I've thinned this down. It's applying to the model, letting that undershading show through. Now I'm just applying this to areas like the boots, the gun. I'm going to apply it to the armour and things like that as well. By glazing it on, it's going to let all of the previous colours show through from underneath while darkening this area down. Just adding some interest to these parts of the model and breaking up the look that would be if we just left it with the dry brushes. So I'm applying this to all of the arm panels here with this slightly grey mix. You can see how it's going on very thin, letting a lot of the previous layers show through.
If you're enjoying the video, please press like. If you want more videos, press the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. If you would like to support the channel and become a member, please press the join button down below.
And after that layer's dried, you can see how we can see all the highlights coming through underneath. We've glazed on a much darker colour onto these areas. So now I'm coming in with a bit of the Khorne Red, which I'm also going to thin down so it's a bit like a glaze consistency again. This I'm going to pick out the shoulder pads on the model, so this will act like a highlight. We've already darkened them down with the previous step, but now this will go on top. Glazing it on will just give a slight red appearance to these shoulder pads. I'm being really careful around all the other areas and colours. I don't want to get this over anything other than those shoulder pads. I'm just glazing on a little bit of this thinned down Khorne Red So it'll just give that red pop of colour on the shoulders. Now to my glazed in red, I'm adding a bit of white. So this is going to create like a pinky colour. For this, I'm going to glaze it all over the skin. I know this is going to be far too pink for the final result that I want. I'm just mixing in red and white till I get a colour that I'm happy with. And now I'm going to carefully glaze this all over the skin. You can see how it's a really, really bright pink. It looks pretty horrid on the model, but I'm going to knock this back with another colour after. But for now, I just want to get this onto the skin to act like a base coat. But by glazing it, I'm letting all the other colours show through. You can see that skin is really, really bright. But it's time to knock it back now by adding some black into the red to create a much darker colour now, which I'm thinning down so it's really thin. And I'm going to very carefully glaze this back over the top. So this will leave that brighter pink shade as an additional highlight, but really sink into the recesses, darken this down and give it a much more natural skin tone that will match in with the black and white paint scheme we've got for the rest of the model. So also be really careful on all the other colours as always. But after you've glazed that in, you can see how it's darkened that down. Made the skin match much more into the monochrome colour system we've got. But now I'm just going to carefully dry brush a little bit of that original pink back over just to catch some of the raised details. So I'm going to be really careful here. I'm just going to carefully dry brush over those areas of skin with that brighter pink. So we'll just very lightly catch the most raised details and pick them out and add some interest to the face. And with the skin painted, the next thing I'm going to do is paint the eyes to the model just to finish this off. So I'll be sinking the black into the recesses as I always do. Obviously being really nice and neat, nice and careful. It's going to be about the only areas of pure black or white on the model. And then I'm carefully sinking a little bit of white into the recesses over the black we just applied. Being really careful with this. Don't want these areas to be too large. And then finally a little bit of black again in the middle of the white, which will split it up and give the impression of a pupil. If you come in too thick with the white at any stage here, you can paint back over it again. Keep going back and forth until you get some eyes that you're happy with. And with the eyes and face painted, the model is actually looking pretty good now. I don't want to do too much more to this. If I go too heavy, I'll actually ruin the effect I'm quite happy with. First of all, I'm just dry brushing a little bit of red now, just to make those shoulder pads pop out. So I'm taking some of the pure Khorne Red. I'm just going to carefully dry brush these over the shoulder pads, so it'll build up on the edges and the tops of the curves. Just been really light with this. I don't want to come too heavy. I do just want to accentuate that red on the shoulders ever so slightly. Feel that red just brighten up those shoulder pads a little bit without making them look too red against the black and white of the rest of the model. So I'm really happy with how this is looking. I think there's one final thing I can do just to make everything stand out a bit more. So I'm going to take a little bit of pure black. I'm going to fill it down ever so slightly. I don't want this to be a wash or a glaze at this stage, but I want to keep control of it. And I'm just going to black line some of the details to the model. So a bit like applying pin shade, just coming through with the black paint and the edges of any sharp details or recesses or anything like that, the change between any two fabrics. I'm just applying a really thin black line of Abaddon Black paint just to help mark out the difference between all the different textures. This is an old technique, but it works really well when you've only got a few colours on a model to help separate the colours, make detail stand out, and just add a bit more definition. So I'm just carefully coming through and black lining the edges of all the sharp raised details on the model. Make some of those details pop and add a little bit more interest to this Imperial Guard soldier. So all these details here, like around the helmet, just coming in with a really thin line of pure black. If I thin this down so it's not too stark, it won't be a really sharp black line. It will just add a little bit of definition between all the different colours. And just add some interest to what could otherwise be seen as quite a flat model. With that black lining applied, I'm really happy with how this guy's come out. I don't think I need to add any more to him. So there is how to paint an Imperial Guard soldier using just 3 paints. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below, are there any other models you'd like to see me attempt to paint using just 3 colours? And happy painting!